Welcome to Bakers Bantering. To my left, we got Jenna and Nicole Baker, and we do not have my mom for this one, but we got my dad, Eric and Baker.
Round two. This is my second one.
Welcome back, Dad.
Well, thank you. It's
Welcome
good to
back.
be back.
It's good to be back again.
Guess who's back? Tell a friend. Does he not know what we're talking about?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Guess who's back? What is that from?
Eminem, bro.
That's
Slim
right.
Shady.
Yeah, he doesn't know.
No, I got nothing.
Your age is showing.
It might have been something
I
before
got
that.
nothing.
Well, welcome back, Dad. It's nice to have you again.
Well, give you I'm awake this time.
Are you awake now?
I'm awake now.
You're funny. Today we do have a fun conversation with Brandon and Shags from the Driftwood Outdoors Podcast, which is a podcast that Dad is a big fan of. Tell us about it, Dad.
Well, I'm not sure what you want to know about it, but
Just give us a general overview. How'd you find them? What do they talk about?
I haven't really been listening to podcasts very long, and I don't know. I ran into a guy down in the country someplace, and that was a podcaster, and I started listening to him, and I'd heard this guy before because he also did an outdoors hunting and fishing type thing on the radio down there in Rolla. His name's Bill Cooper, and he's a friend of theirs. And so it was interesting. I thought, well, I must see if there's any more. So I Googled podcast Missouri, and they popped up, and I started listening to them. I said, I really like what these guys have got to say, and it was all stuff that I'm interested in. There's just not in just the regular media a lot of outdoors type content. There used to be. ESPN used to have outdoor media on TV, and there used to be stuff, but there's just not. Well, there's a lot now with the podcasters. Anyway, I started listening to Driftwood Outdoors and Shags and Brandon, and just connected, and I like their content. They do a lot of interview type content. They've had some very interesting people, from the state of Missouri and in other places. They're really more local to here, and then. There's just a lot of things that I connected with, and I enjoy listening to them. They do about an hour a week, and
Dad only came back on the podcast because he wanted to talk hunting and fishing. What do you think, Derek?
Sounds pretty strange.
I might be about as one way and as you are, Derek, about your wrestling.
Yeah, I wonder where he got it from.
I don't know.
I wondered.
There's two really important things in life. Hunting and fishing.
And Derek says WWE and AEW.
That is true. WWE and AEW is amazing.
Well, so speaking of hunting and fishing, Dad, I know it is your favorite time of year coming up. Have you had any success yet out in the outdoors world?
No, I've got out several times. No success. I mean, I've had some close encounters and some opportunities, but not chose to
pull the trigger
per se.
Well, I would like to know if you have anything you want to share about our backstage experience at WWE, because you were there with us, but you didn't get to talk about it with Mom and Derek and Ellis and I.
It's just surreal being able to go backstage at WWE. It's it's beyond words to describe, but the best way I can describe it, it's like if you can imagine being backstage at a Barnum and Bailey circus. Do you think it was pretty cool? It was almost like Cody brought Triple H down there and introduced us to him. I mean,
Mom said that on last week's podcast, and I didn't really know how accurate she was, and then I edited the videos. I think it's pretty safe to say Cody went out of his way.
I think so
to find Triple H and to bring him to meet you. I watched the videos back, and after seeing it all play out again, I think that's exactly what happened. So that is freaking cool.
That was really cool that Cody did that. We would need to thank him big time. You need to thank Cody.
Well, Cody Rose, you're awesome.
He did. He brought him right over, and Triple H was ready to go. He said, "Who's your friend, Cody?" And then you got to tell Triple H what you thought.
Yep, I did.
What do you think? You
did.
think they'll work out something where you can get in the ring at the
Royal Rumble?
Yes.
Royal Rumble. What
Triple
number?
H?
Big fix.
What number do you think you would go in at? Number 1, 2, 30? Where do you think?
Oh, I don't know, but if there's a big number to have, I definitely will do that for sure.
Do you think you might challenge Ray's record, or does Ray still have the record? Who's got the record now?
No, Gunther's got the record now, right?
Could you possibly challenge Gunther's record?
The only way he's challenging Gunther's record is if he pulls a Rey Mysterio and he gets under the ring and hides and then comes back out at the end.
There's no other people do that.
After the real winner steps out of the stage, he's
stick
all of a
on.
sudden he's still in it.
Yeah, and that'll come out and pin him. That's the only way Derek's winning. I'm telling you right now.
There's no painting.
Can you imagine Derek hiding under the ring and then
How
every
are
couple?
you gonna throw one of those big dudes?
No, look, picture this. Derek's hiding under the ring, and every couple minutes he pops his head out, looks to see how many more people in there, and then goes back under. They get the camera right on him as he does it. That'd be hilarious. You'd be like that one guy under the who comes out from under the ring and taunts the Miz. Dexter Lewis.
Oh, Dexter Lewis, yeah.
Well,
Don't get a horse
I want to.
She's just little wiggle all around. She got it.
Derek, I want to share something with you, okay? So, Dad and I were texting earlier, and I received the most Eric Baker text from him today, okay? So, background info for you. We are recording this intro after we did the interview that you're about to hear us talking to our new buddies from Driftwood Outdoors. But I texted Dad. I said, I'd like to go over these notes with you briefly before we start with Driftwood Outdoors. When will you be home? He says, in about 10 or 15 minutes. I say, perfect. He says, I'm glad you noticed. I said, noticed what? I didn't get it, Ellis. I said, noticed what? And he said that I'm perfect.
That's some text.
That must be where you get
later,
your lack of humbleness.
I thought later, she might not get it because she's a little dense. Maybe I should have. Maybe I should have said, I think so. Thanks for noticing.
Yeah, I didn't. I said, noticed what? And he said that I'm perfect. And then I had quite literally just taken a bite of food. And I responded to him in all caps, ha ha ha, no way. And then I said, I just choked laughing at that because I did. I was so caught off guard by it. I legitimately choked on my food a little bit. And I sent that to multiple people because I was like, this is the most Eric Baker bullshit I've ever received.
I giggled when I sent it, too. It was kind of funny. Yeah, you're so clever.
Oh, yeah, I always do that.
It was funny. Okay, I have one more thing we need to do before we get to this interview. Ellis, can you hook me up with that box on the bed?
Yes.
Okay, so Derek, we got this here box in the mail, and I took a look at it, and it's from WWE headquarters. And I did not know that we were going to be receiving a package from WWE headquarters, so I was a little confused, but it came with this note, straight from WWE headquarters.
That looks legit.
Baker Banter team, we found some fun merchandise as we were cleaning the office that I figured you might enjoy. Hope all is well. Be in touch. Jake.
Cool.
So,
Well, that's cool.
our buddy Jake.
Shout out to you, Jake.
Shout out, Jake.
So check this out. Start here.
Well, that's cool.
It's a WWE Cardinal.
Royal Rumble
Turn
Cardinal.
that around. Show the camera.
It says Royal Rumble, too.
It's from 2022. I guess this is some merch they made back when Royal Rumble was here in St. Louis.
Wait, David here.
Oh, you think it should sit with the John Cena hat?
Yeah.
I
Okay,
like
hold
him.
on.
He can be our new mascot.
Should you name him? Should you name him John Cena? Or is it Fredbird?
It's just going to be the Fredbird.
Rumble Redbird.
I think these two things are the same, so I'm going to let each of you open one.
Ooh.
Should have taken them out of the packaging.
Wow.
Whoa.
You got kind of stuff.
So what are they? Can I see?
It's Cardinals.
Oh, Derek, you know what this is? Do you know what this is?
I don't.
That goes in the middle of the belt.
Oh,
Oh.
Don't you think? I bet that goes right in the middle of the WWE belt.
I thought they were
It must,
coasters.
yeah. I don't know.
You know how they have like the different things on the sides that say like whatever?
Mhm.
I mean, I guess they could be coasters, but they're kind
No,
of
they're not
fake.
coasters.
Not
I don't think they're
coasters.
coasters.
I was going to say, I think you'd ruin them.
Yeah, they must go on a belt.
I
for
think
sure.
they get attached to a belt. That's what these things are for. You know how the belts have the things down the side?
Yeah.
Little medallions.
Yeah. These could attach to your big belts you've got upstairs.
Well,
You can
that's cool.
custom make them cardinals.
I like it.
We need to talk to Louie so we can get a matching blues one as well.
Well, I got another one here. Let's
Oh.
see what this is. So this says January 2022 Royal Rumble. I think it's fitting that I open this because the January 2022 Royal Rumble was my first wrestling event ever.
Well, they get studio owners and open it.
And okay, I'll do it. Oh, very cool. These totally attached to belts. These two are from Royal Rumble. January 2022 Royal Rumble. And that is a hefty piece of metal.
Yeah, it is.
That is a nice, cool thing.
We need a tester and see if they're real gold.
Should I go grab a belt real fast?
Ooh, maybe.
Let's do that later.
Oh, okay, fine.
Here, put them back in there.
Yeah, let me put them back. But these definitely go on the belts.
Those are sick.
These definitely go. These can attach to your two. You've got one black belt that's a real belt, and you've got one red belt that's a real belt. And I guarantee you these little circle things fit right on into those two belts.
Well, the Cardinals ones will be on the red, and the Rumble will be on the black.
Okay,
Perfect.
There you go.
Love
cool.
that.
Well, thank you to Jake.
Well, that's
Thank you
Shout
very
out.
much, Jake.
Thank you, Jake.
Shout out Jake.
Shout out to you, Jake. Thanks for sending these.
Thank
These
you
are
very
pretty
much.
cool.
Good to see you again, Jake.
Yeah, we'll have to go decorate Derek's belts after this. It's
I
pretty
think
cool.
We are.
All right. Let's get to the Driftwood Outdoors conversation.
Yep. Ladies and gentlemen, we have our special guest, my dad's boys, Brandon Shags.
Woo! I can't believe I'm actually on here. Derek, you are super famous. My nephew is losing his mind that I get to sit here and visit with you.
Well, that is so awesome. And we're going to kick off the first question. And
Well, I want to know, what's your nephew's name?
Coop Man.
Yeah,
you give-
they've talked about it on the show.
Can you give Cooper a shout out? Tell him hi.
well, Cooper, how are you, buddy? We're going to kick off the first question, so I can let Jenna take over the first question.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Derek. Yes, this is Shags and Brandon. They are joining us from the Driftwood Outdoors Podcast, which is a podcast that Dad has told me lots and lots about.
Oh, yeah, I talk you guys up a lot.
We certainly appreciate it.
A lot.
I know. I knew they were your favorite because you tell me about them all the time.
Yeah, I know.
And you told me about it on camera, and I was like, well, we have to put Brandon as Shags on the podcast. And now here we are, talking to them. How you feel about that?
I think it's pretty cool. I mean, just happened. I ran into Shags on the river fishing because we both like to fish on the river that they don't talk about anymore, which we never talked about.
Yeah, it's really funny actually that you guys chose to stop saying what river, because when we started content, we decided very early on that we were never going to say the name of the river that we go to. And that was kind of just because we want to make sure that the property that Dad has down there is protected and, you know, as safe as possible.
I want to say it's a lot like love, right? When you first fall in love, like you just want to profess it from the mountaintop and tell everybody. And that's kind of what happened with this river. Like we have a deep love for this river. It's a very special place. But then you kind of like settle into the comfort of your love and you're like, I think I just kind of want to protect this and keep it for ourselves. So I think that's where we are today. It's like, it's really special. And now we don't need any more outside influence to justify it. We figured it out and we're owning it at this point.
Absolutely.
Well, because neither one of you are from Missouri.
That's correct.
So when
I'm from
did
Indiana.
you guys find the river?
Indiana.
the first year I lived here, which was 2010.
Okay.
I had lived in Montana for about 4 years, so I thought I had experienced the greatest rivers in the country until I discovered some of these Ozark streams, which I think are as beautiful as any water in the United States.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, my wife and I have been in all 50 states. Jenna's actually been in 49.
Derek's been in 48.
Derek's been in 48. And
That counts dollars.
honestly, Missouri is about as pretty a place as you're going to find. I mean, we don't have the big mountains, but there's just so much here, and it's just got such a diverse landscape that you can find a lot. If you like whatever you like, you can find in Missouri just about.
Right.
No,
I was up in North Missouri today, and we were on large expanses of prairie. And you're up there in the rolling hills, prairie, ag lands. And then when you get down in the Ozarks, you can't believe you're in the same state.
Right.
So I'd like to know how each of you ended up in the middle of Missouri. If you want to start, since you already kind of started, Brandon, and then we can let Shags go.
I think Shags wanted to say something a second ago. I cut him off. Did you
Well,
have?
I'm used to it. Go ahead. Just keep telling your story.
Well, this would be a funny interview.
I came to Missouri in 2010. I'd been out in Montana, moved back to Indiana for a few years. That's where I am from originally. And I wanted to make a career transition into the outdoor industry. Midway USA used to have a division called Battenfeld Technologies, which was all their like manufactured goods, Caldwell shooting supplies, Tipton gun cleaning supplies. So I became the marketing manager of that company and moved here for that job in 2010. And my daughters at the time the older one was just starting kindergarten. So we settled in Howard County, just north of Columbia, and basically been in this general area ever since.
What about you, Shags?
So I grew up in the Pacific Northwest, right on the Oregon-Washington border. Like if you've ever seen the movie Goonies, I grew up like 30 minutes away from where that was filmed. Like legitimately grew up in Goonies country. And I played college basketball in Minnesota in the Twin Cities. So my teammates who became my best friends grew up in Boonville. And when they graduated, they didn't want to go back to Boonville and move to Columbia. Well, I went back home and started radio because that's all I ever wanted to do for as long as I could remember. I'd turn the music down and the DJs up because I thought, man, these people get paid to do all the things I'm getting in trouble for at school. That sounds awesome. So I started doing radio back home, and all my buddies kept saying, you got to come to Columbia, man. We're having such a good time. And I ended up losing that radio job, and I applied to every single radio station in Columbia, Missouri to come move in with them. And it's pretty wild, the life decisions and career decisions you make when you're 21 years old. Because I drove across the country like 1,500 miles for a 5-hour-a-week job. Not a day. It was a one shift, Saturday, 7 to midnight. And I was like, good enough. I'm on my way. And I joked, I was so poor. I lived on an air mattress. We called it my white trash waterbed. I couldn't afford water, so we just put air in it. And after about 2 years, I turned it into management. And just when you're young and you chase a dream and it's all you ever wanted to do, you fight hard for it. And here we are 20 years later. I'm still in Columbia. They all moved away. So it's just me now and doing a morning show for a classic rock station. Give them a shout out, 96.7 KCMQ. And met up with Brandon a couple years ago and started Driftwood Outdoors. And it's been a pretty wild ride.
Yeah, we've got family that live up in the Columbia area, and I posted that, I don't know if it's Facebook or Instagram picture of me and you on there, and my cousin's wife said, how in the world did you meet up with him? He's my favorite DJ in Columbia. Yeah, it was.
It's pretty wild, man. It's a small world. Even talking about Derek, my nephew, when he came out here like years and years ago, he was because you used to work at a bakery, didn't you, Derek, in St. Louis?
That is very true. I do work at a Pioneer Bakery for a very long time.
Yeah, it was a long time ago because he had even come out and was like, can we go to St. Louis? I want to see if I can meet this guy I follow on TikTok. He works at this bakery. and we just ran out of time and didn't make it up there. So I mean, that was years and years ago. I think he's my nephew's 8 or 9 now, and yeah, huge fan, and he's gonna lose his mind that. Well, he already has. I already told him that you and I were gonna do this podcast together. So you may get a FaceTime around the holidays when I'm back home.
Next time he's in town, maybe we can work something out where we can put it together.
Yeah, definitely.
That'd be great.
We will make that happen in the holidays for sure.
We could take Derek fishing.
Yeah, there we go. I don't know. I've seen him pretty feisty in a kayak. I don't know if we need. I don't want to get out there and start fighting with him.
Here's the thing about the kayak. So Derek, he had his shoes off. And you know how the river is. If you don't have shoes on, it is not comfortable. And when he flipped, he didn't have his shoes on and he hurt his feet. And he was angry about that because it hurt.
I blame Scott for that.
Yeah, you blame Uncle Scott, but that's okay. But yeah,
I would have been pretty upset too, Derek. It's cool. I would have been a little feisty.
Thank you for that.
Were you going to ask a question, Derek?
Yeah, you guys are doing great. Your questions. Now it's my turn now. So, gentlemen, Brandon, Mr. Shags, how long you do this podcast for? My dad is a big fan of yours. How does it feel? Everyone is listening that podcast, and my dad is a humongous fan of you guys. How does it feel launching this platform?
Yeah, I've got something to add on to that. I was going to ask you that as well. You know, I know how long you've been doing it, but really, what inspired you to start the podcast?
Brandon, you want to tell that story since I fought you tooth and nail the whole time saying I didn't want to do it?
Well, that's why I think it's better if you tell it. So I was doing a podcast for the Conservation Federation of Missouri.
Okay.
Prior to this, I kind of feel like I was early into the podcast world, and that's funny because that's only 10 years ago when I started really listening to podcasts. And then at the Federation, I said we should do one, and it was great. You know, I started with Governor Nixon. I had on some really neat people, Steve Ranella, quite a few others, and so I really started to enjoy it. And then when I decided to leave there, I wanted to continue podcasting. I was already writing a newspaper column. I write a column every week for about 20 newspapers or so that run it, and it was called Driftwood Outdoors. So I said to Shags, you know, we were already pretty good friends. I said, you know, we should really try to marry your radio skills, especially, you know, his technical skills behind the board. He's a really good audio editor with my outdoor network and folks, and just do an outdoors podcast. And he just didn't really want to do it, and I just kept telling him we should, and eventually we did. And I think, like anything in life, it took a while to find our stride, but I'm real proud of what we're putting out these days.
Does he ever give you kudos and said, "Yeah, you were right, Brandon"?
No, I still complain about all the work.
Yeah.
You know, that's really hard to say in the Shags. I suffer from that as well.
You know the truth, you know, like I know the truth. He doesn't have to say it. I can feel it.
Well, it's been a lot of fun. I mean, I would have never thought I got to interview some of my heroes like Bill Dance and Al Linder and like some really big names. And Brandon definitely has those connections for sure. And it's really a funny story on how him and I met. Because he was the executive director for the Conservation Federation of Missouri at the time, and I was just kind of the professional radio troll. And there were some elected officials that were trying to gut the Department of Conservation. So I'd always just kind of talked fishing and hunting on our show because it was easy content. It was something that I liked to do, and instead of doing work, I could just tell stories of what I did that weekend. So when these legislators started introducing bills that were legitimately going to defund the Department of Conservation, I would go into work at 4:30, 4:45 every morning and call their offices and leave them voicemails of saying, "Why do you hate Missouri? Why are you trying to take away the thing that we love?" Yeah, and then I would air it all morning long going, I wonder if they'll pick up this time, knowing it was the same voicemail I'd left at 4 o'clock in the morning. No one was going to answer. and we put up their information, like their public information, the office number, and asked our audience just that call and leave a voicemail and ask, why do you hate Missouri? And it took off to the point where one of the representatives was quoted in the St. Louis Dispatch saying, I don't hate Missouri. I take a lot of pride in that.
That's funny.
But I had said on the air, I bought a bullhorn and I was going to go just walk the halls of the Capitol with my bullhorn, hooting and hollering and screaming. And a mutual friend was like, have you met Brandon Butler? And I was like, I don't even know who that is. I'd never even heard of Conservation Federation of Missouri. Because, I mean, I was just an outdoorsman. Thanks to Brandon, I've really become like a conservationist. I know what that means now, and not just a person that enjoys what Missouri has to offer, like really trying to help protect it and stick up for it and do my part. But Brandon and I and a couple other guys sat around over some wings and beers at Shiloh and came up with Conservation Day at the Capitol. And it's kind of our crowning jewel of that still goes on every single year. And it's one of the best. What is it, Brandon? What do we call it? It's the best.
It's a lobby day.
Lobby day. That's what it is.
So it's definitely become one of the bigger ones. That's an annual event in the rotunda between the Senate and the House.
Yeah, I just went to the Capitol for the first time in
2021.
2021. What was Derek awarded for?
So, well, I don't know that Derek was really awarded, but they invited us. The governor's office declared World Down Syndrome Day an official holiday in the state of Missouri. So they had us down. There was a couple of local nonprofits to St. Louis that we work with and know well, and they just had a group of people down there to recognize World Down Syndrome Day as a holiday in the state of Missouri. And so it was really fun. We got to go down there. There's actually a gentleman, of course, now, what's his name? Elijah. There's a guy, Elijah works at the state capitol. He has Down syndrome, and he came to that event dressed to the nines. And to be honest, Mom was kind of embarrassed that Derek didn't have a suit, and we got him a suit after that. Because
but we got to meet Governor Parsons and Lieutenant Governor Mike Keogh and others, and it was a lot of fun. They actually presented Derek with a plaque.
Yeah.
And we've got the plaque upstairs on our mantle.
Yeah.
I'm Facebook friends with Elijah. He's a real mover and shaker. I've met him.
He's always wearing a suit, isn't he? Isn't he at the banquets we go to? We've seen him at a couple of those. That's
what I was just gonna say, is that he's part of the Disabled Sportsmen's Association that Shags and I love to support. And Derek, you might be a great candidate to come with us in the future to this event. Whitetails Unlimited kind of puts it on for, what's the official name? Mid-Missouri Disabled Sportsmen's. Is that what it is?
It's close. Yeah, it's something like that.
We're close. We're huge supporters.
Well, that'd be fun.
Well, I appreciate it. Appreciate that.
You should come with us.
For you guys.
Normally, his experience hunting is when his mom goes out of town, and I have him. I've got to deal with him all weekend, so I drag him to the blind, and he at least gets to play on his phone and do stuff. That's not his favorite thing to do.
Well, Derek's not a big walker, and you got to do a lot of walking for a lot of different kind of hunting.
He doesn't like to walk. He doesn't like the cold, and he doesn't like to sweat. And the outdoors kind of has those things. And he doesn't like to walk around on gravel either with his bare feet.
Well, there's a new doe season in the early part. It's already passed for this year, but I'll throw the offer out that next year, if you want to come deer hunting to shoot a doe on my property, I'll drive you right to the blind in a 4-wheeler, so you don't have to walk. Get you up in the blind. Shags helped me build it the other day, so.
That's impressive. He doesn't even let me hunt out there, Derek. And
That's
it is
true.
the Mid-America Special Sportsman Association. I looked it up so we'd make sure we got it right.
You like the idea of a 4-wheeler, Derek?
I have nothing to say to that, but
Oh.
One of the first times I took him hunting, I built a nice blind. I got a buddy that's got a farm down in St. James, Missouri, and anyway, I built a blind on the property, and I took Derek down there, and I've been hunting for since the 80s. So anyway, I think this was the first time I ever took Derek hunting. We went down and sat in the blind, and it was during archery season, And we had a hen turkey come out into the field, and I wanted to shoot something. And this hen's out there about 40 yards, and I have never killed a turkey. I've never got drawn back on them. I don't know, Brandon, I know you're a bow hunter. It's tough.
You've never killed a turkey with a bow.
With a bow and arrow.
Right.
With a bow and arrow.
It's hard to do.
It
hard
is
to do.
hard to get drawn back on them. And then when you do get drawn back on them, they're not a very big target. Anyway, I had just shot a couple times. The doggone thing was out there about 40 yards. And I had Derek. I said, all right, Derek, here, you run the camera and you video. And he's videoing the whole thing. And I'll be doggone if I didn't hit that thing.
He did. We have video evidence.
We got video
Derek?
evidence of it. That thing went right down.
For sure.
What's your question?
My second question, at least you always talked a lot. I'm not sorry for him, though. But my next question is for you guys. How long you guys met?
How long ago?
How long we been friends, dude? It's got to be close to a decade.
Yeah, I think the first conservation day was in 2015. So I'd say we met in 2014.
So yeah,
But like
on
you,
10 years.
Like all of you, I was a fan before I was a friend. So I was listening to Shags on the radio, thinking, who is this crazy dude in Columbia?
You're on the morning show now. What were you in the morning show back then, Shags?
I've been on KCMQ doing mornings for June 1st was 11 years, so 11 and a half now. I took a little bit of a sabbatical, a little hiatus. I went home for 3, but I was out here for like 7. So, you guys will appreciate this. I was working for Job Corps in Astoria on the coast, and they'd sent an email going, "Hey, would you be interested in taking over for Bob and Tom in the morning?" I was like, I'll entertain the thought. So we did 3 phone interviews, but it was during spring salmon season, which is a big deal back home. And I was out on the Columbia River on the boat, and I started every phone interview, 3 separate days of, if I hang up on you, I promise to call you back, but I'm not going to lose a salmon over a job I may or may not take.
That was a good story. I remember you telling that.
Yeah, I'm a little hardcore about that. But Derek, I was going to ask you, I think we were both at Busch Stadium on the same day. Were you there for Wayno's last game, the final game?
Yeah, I was.
Yeah, we were there, and it was way too freaking hot. Sweating for a solid 3 hours, and I did not make it to the end of the game. I think Derek and Mom made it to about the 8th inning. But speaking of all the charity work you do, I was listening to one of your episodes, and it was just a random one that I picked, and I was really excited to hear that you had worked with True North. I went to Mizzou. I was in Alpha Chi Omega.
Oh, yeah.
Greek life over there. And we worked with True North a lot in the sorority. And that was the nonprofit that we would raise money for at events each year and stuff. So I thought it was really cool that you were doing something with them. And it sounds like it kind of came about on accident.
Yeah, it really did. The fiance and I bought our first home together like 2 or 3 years ago. And when your neighbor comes over and says, the first time ever speaking, going, "Do you know what happened in that house?" It's never going to be a good thing. We had never even spoke before. And that was the first things he said to me when he saw me out doing yard work. And long story short, unfortunately, a woman lost her life in our house. She was killed by an ex-boyfriend that broke in and murdered her and then killed himself. So it was a murder-suicide. And I deal with things in an unhealthy way of making light, making jokes. So I made a couple of jokes on the radio about, of course, my house being haunted. Of course, that would happen. And the longer I had to sit with it, it just didn't feel right. And talking to a couple of people, and I was like, you know what? We should do something in her name. And the audience is who reached out and was like, you need to check out True North. I'd never even heard of the organization before. And I went and did a tour and met the executive director and saw their facility, saw their safe house. And I was like, okay, this is it. And it took me about a year at the radio station to get it all planned, and super proud to say that the first year, just KCMQ alone, one radio station, 12 hours, raised $25,000 for True North. And then last year we raised over $33,000 in one day. So yeah, it's a pretty cool, I mean, it's an amazing organization and it's really special. And yeah, it came because of the tragedy that happened in this home. And I actually met the woman's son, who was super cool, and he became a part of it. And it's been a really cool thing that we're going to continue to do every year. So I appreciate you saying that. That's really nice.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. I was happy to hear that there's more people down there supporting that organization, because I know what they do is not easy, and they need all the help that they can get. So I was happy to hear that you were.
And the cool thing is too, with it being a classic rock station, our demographic is majority of males. So I like it for the fact of raising money, but also awareness, and then letting other people know that there is a place there. So if you're in a situation, there's somewhere you can reach out. And I mean, they're there to help. It's a pretty incredible thing.
Yeah. Another thing that I know you guys talk about sometimes is, this is totally different subject, but who got the bigger deer? And
well, that's
because
me.
of that, I want to talk about what you guys talk about, but I also want my dad to tell a story about me when I was little.
I know how you guys have the little competition going on. So I got a buddy of mine that, he hunts a lot also. And Jenna was 2 or 3.
I was probably 3.
Probably. She's a little guy. And my buddy and I were getting ready to go up to Columbia. They had that Missouri Deer Classic up there every year. I don't know if they're still doing it or not. But anyway, he was going to take this nice buck that he had killed and had mounted and have it scored and do all this stuff. Anyway, so he lived out in Winsville. So we had to drive out, 40 minutes away from us before we get out to him. And the whole way out there, I'm like, all right, Jenna, I want you to work on it. You say, my dad's deer's bigger than yours. My dad's deer's bigger than yours. And I mean, she pulled it off to the T. We opened that door up. She walked right up to the mantle, looked up, pointed up at it, and said, hey, Bruce, my dad's deer's bigger than yours. It was funny.
And now I still tell him that every day. Every time not every day, but every time I see him, I'll remind him just in case.
Yeah.
All right. Shags have crushes, so Shags, go ahead.
I do, Derek. I want to know about this hornet's nest.
I hate the hornet's nest.
Well, what happened?
Well, so here's what happened. I actually wasn't there, but the reason I think it became such a big problem is because the first time the family went back to our cabin, we don't go for most of the winter, but we first come back over Memorial Day weekend. And I wasn't there, but my mom and my sister walk into the cabin. Dad had decided to hang some decoration. It's a massive dead hornet's nest.
Yeah, outdoorsmen. Me and a buddy of mine were on the river, and we look up in the tree, and there's this hornet's nest. I mean, it's a big one. It's about that size.
Oh, yeah, it's easily the size of a basketball. And he didn't tell anybody.
It's February, and I cut it down, and I'm like, of course, I'm a little concerned about it myself, coming alive when the things start warming up. So anyway, I hung it under the cabin, and it had warmed up, and I didn't have any problem with it. So I decided to hang it in the cabin. But this was before anybody had gotten down there.
So then...
And then when we go in there, and we're unloading and doing our, everybody's busy trying to do everything, and they all of a sudden notice it, and they say, oh my God, Eric, you got to come in here. There's something going on here. Something has built a nest in the cabin.
No, they started screaming.
They were hysterical. Yeah, 'cause they don't like bugs.
Mom and Katie were losing their shit. They were screaming.
Before I lose mine.
And then he hears them.
He sees them freaking out. And of course, because they freaked out, Derek freaked out. And their freak out lasted, a couple minutes. Derek's freak out lasted the whole summer.
Yeah, he's still not over it.
Were there any hornets in the nest? Still?
No. But I'll tell you the funny thing that like I said, I hung it up underneath the cabin, and the first time I came back to see it, a bird had got into it and was nesting or eating. I don't know what the bird was doing.
This
but
was before it was indoors?
This was before it was indoors.
Okay.
And I got over there near it, and that thing came alive on me. I about lost it.
Oh, my God. You're ridiculous. Okay, Brandon, I know you were recently on a big hunt, and I know what happened, but my dad does not know what happened yet, and I would like you to share some insider info with him.
Oh, my moose?
Yes.
Yeah, you must have just got back, or are you even back yet?
Oh, I'm back. I've been back quite a while. The hunt didn't take very long. I got a moose on the second morning out. It was a real testament to putting the work in ahead of the time, I guess. Like I just called so many people and tried to narrow down all the information to an area that would be likely to have a moose in it, and went out the first night, found the area to be positive, a place I thought a little the first day in 2 different drainages, and went back to the better one on that next morning and shot a moose. So it was a really, really cool experience. Just a nice, respectable bull, and made a really good film. So yeah, I'm pleased. Very, very happy about it.
Listening to your podcast, this was like top 10 at least, maybe number 1 on your wish list.
Yeah, it was number 1 for sure. I love Montana so much, and like I said earlier, lived out there for a few years when I was first out of college, and my oldest daughter was born out there, and I just haven't gotten back nearly as much as I would like. And every year I apply for bighorn sheep, mountain goats, and moose, and I've done that 17 years getting rejected, and finally in the 18th year I got the moose. And if I could have picked one of the 3, I'd pick the moose. Now I hope over the next 10 or 20 years I'll eventually pull the other 2 as well, and have all 3 of the big 3 in Montana.
So how long were you planning to be there?
I had taken up to 2 weeks off, so I was going to be out there for up to 14 days. I talked to an outfitter who said that a really good local hunter had also drawn there's 10 tags in my unit, and this other guy had drawn one of those other 10 tags, and he hunted for 9 days and never saw a moose. So eventually he did see a small bull and shot it. So it's not like deer, they're just not all over the place. And when I pulled the trigger, I did have a moment where I was like, well, that kind of happened too fast. But it's a bird in hand. It's a once in a lifetime. And I was super thrilled to be able to accomplish that.
Yeah, I actually just had a buddy that got back from northern Ontario. He'd been spending up there. He spent 2 weeks up there moose hunting, and he came back without one. He had some video of a cow that he was in 10 yards. He had his gun on the cow and trying to shoo her away, and yeah, he was a little bit had a real close encounter with a cow, and she eventually went away. But yeah, fortunately there wasn't a calf around. He did not have to take her out, but he was thinking about it.
Yeah, our good friend Darren Haverstick just went to Alberta and came back without a moose too. The real big ones are up in Alaska and the Yukon, and someday I hope to be able to go up there and chase a real gigantic moose.
I don't know. I know my dad knows about your story, but I don't know if you know that you have this in common with him. He has actually lost a cabin down in a similar area to where you lost your cabin. Different circumstances, but you do have that in common with each other.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah, we've got a place that's been in the family since the 50s. My dad had a place built there, and I've taken it over. Well, in that 17 flood, our cabin got taken out, and I had to tear it down and rebuild and all that. And that was right about the time I started listening to podcasts, and I run across yours, and shortly, while I was in the process of doing that, I've come across Up in Smoke and then the Great Deer Disaster, and it was quite touching. I could feel your pain in that whole deal because I was just going through that whole process myself.
Yeah, man, I'm sorry to hear that you went through that. And to have your cabin taken away under any circumstances, that's just unfortunate. To have it taken away though by somebody that literally lights the match.
Will you tell us that story a little bit so our listeners know?
Ours was, Mother Nature took it out, and honestly, we're in a better place because of it, because I've rebuilt and it's a better situation. And the families can use it so much better. We really enjoy it. What
he did was he built a tiny cabin. It's kind of like one of those things you see on HGTV, those tiny homes. He built that. He calls it a super shitter. And he built that so that he would have a place to stay while he built the big cabin.
That was where the old outhouse was.
Yeah.
And that's why I call it that.
I know. That's what you call it. But will you kind of briefly explain, or whatever you're comfortable sharing, how you lost your cabin?
Well, Shags and I and my cousin and another friend were the last remaining holdouts from deer camp that year. So it was opening weekend of deer season 2020. And after dark, about 3 hours, a truck came across the creek. You had to drive on an Arkansas bridge, which is an underwater concrete bridge, through a river to get up to my property. And the river was flooded, so we were surprised anybody was coming across it. And there was another neighbor that we called the preacher, and he had recently died, like within 2 weeks. And he had a beautiful 80-acre field along the river, and you could sit on my porch and watch down in that field. And we knew that there was deer over there, but it's private property and nobody has permission to hunt it. He didn't allow hunting, and his children didn't want hunting. So we just kind of watched over it, and it was a nice little sanctuary for the deer. Well, then that truck pulls right into that field and throws on these just like magnificently bright lights, lights up the whole field, and then proceeds to just start firing away on the deer in the field. I jumped up, took off at the truck in my side-by-side. Now my friends are like chasing me. Shags is running down the hill, and my cousin paddled on. The truck like swerves and goes around me and takes off and leaves the holler. So then the next morning that night I called the law enforcement, the game wardens, and told them what had happened. Something else had happened previously where there'd been a poaching incident on my property, and I didn't turn them into the police, trying to be neighborly, even though like they literally shot at my friend. And that never sat well with me. Like I'm a guy that constantly preaches like do the right thing, and if you don't do the right thing, turn yourself in. If somebody else does the wrong thing, turn them in. So I had to turn them in this time. And when we had found the vehicle earlier that morning, so we knew where it belonged, and the agent came out and he was like, "You know who this truck belongs to, don't you?" And I said, "Yeah." And they're like, "You sure you want to do this?" And I was like, "Yeah, I got to at this point." And everyone knew that there would be ramifications from it. And there sure were, because they came eventually. Someone related to these people came and burned my house to the ground. And I got him on camera doing it. In fact, I was on the phone with the jail today, checking on the status of a hearing related to the case. So it's still ongoing. But there's been somebody charged and in jail for the last couple of years for it. So pretty wild. It was a cool place.
Yeah, and I could certainly get that from your
talking about
just talking about it and enjoying it. It sounded like someplace that you guys really connected.
I'm really sorry that happened to you.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I'm sorry that we had 4 deer mounted on the wall. 2 were Shags, 2 were mine. Mine were bigger, and now Shags can never prove otherwise.
Now the argument will just continue on.
Yeah. Well,
Speaking of bigger deer, another funny story that I think you guys will enjoy. When I was in high school, Dad wanted me to go hunting with him, and I was a girl in high school and did not want to do that. And so we started making a deal. And at the time when I was in high school, the North Face jackets were a big deal, and so were the Ugg boots, okay? So we made this deal, and Dad said for every $75 that he had to spend, or $50, I don't know exactly what it was, but however much it was, for every time he spent $75, I owed him one hunting trip. So if I wanted a North Face jacket, that was going to be like 3 hunting trips. If I wanted the Ugg boots, that was going to be another 3 hunting trips. So I think I ended up with 2 North Face jackets and 1 pair of Ugg boots. And I went hunting with my dad to pay him back for those things that I wanted in high school. And I'm pretty sure that's the only time I've ever been hunting.
Well, more importantly, how many deer?
You remember the turkey hunt?
Well, the turkey hunt's the one I really remember. I never went deer hunting. See, here's the thing. He never invited me deer hunting because deer hunting is sacred, okay? He has informed me that I am not to get married during deer season.
No.
Well, that's common sense.
He bitches every time we try to make plans during deer season. And I'm like, bro, deer season's only 4 months out of every year. It's not really fair for you to claim that much time, my guy. But it is what it is.
Well, here's what happened. My brother and his wife decided they set their wedding date. Well, it happened to be opening day of deer season. And we were so aggravated at him and her. Why did you do that? So when I proposed to my wife and we started setting a date, I told her, I said, well, let's see. So from September or October 1st through the end of the year, those are off because it's bow season. And I like to duck hunt and stuff like that. So you're nothing to the end of January. And then, rabbit season and stuff still good till about February 15th. And then trout fishing starts in March. And so, maybe 2 weeks in February and then none of March. And then turkey season's in April and May. So there's a couple weeks in April. And
talk about high maintenance.
And then it's too hot in the summertime. If you could work around that, that'll be fine.
No weddings, no babies during deer season.
April 14th. She did good. She got
That's
it in
turkey
before,
season.
It was
That's
before
not
turkey
great.
season. It was
That's not great.
It was before turkey season. I've never missed a turkey season because of my wedding anniversary.
Oh, that's funny. So, Derek, I got another question for you. I'm kind of curious what it's like to be as famous as you are. I mean, I see these talks and these reels and these Insta posts of people coming up to you and losing their minds. Like, does it ever get old to be as popular as you are online? How does one get millions of followers? We need some help.
Start off being really, really good looking.
I think it's freaking cool to be like me and having us all the fans out there and become really nice people. I'd agree to that.
Do you like getting recognized?
How's it feel getting recognized everywhere? Mind blown.
I hear you, man. Do you got any haters? That's another question. Is you guys share a lot of just your life, and does that get tiring or old or anything like that?
I don't think so.
Derek doesn't have haters. I have haters. Derek.
Sometimes the fans are pretty mean to my sisters, like bruising me for bruising me for no reason.
People like to say that I use
true.
Derek and that I'm exploiting Derek. And what I like to say to that is if I were exploiting Derek, we would not be talking about wrestling every week, okay? But we talk wrestling because we do what Derek wants to do.
Derek has been asking forever. Dad, you need to make me a YouTube channel. Dad, you need to make me a YouTube channel. Dad, you need to make me a recording studio in the basement. Well, guess what? Jenna made him a YouTube channel and a recording studio in the basement.
Well, so I actually went to Mizzou. I did broadcast journalism. When I started college, I used to say I wanted to be the next Erin Andrews. And I quickly figured out that I did not want to be the next Erin Andrews. And I did not actually want to be a journalist. But I fell in love with video storytelling. And even in college, I would say, I was like, in a perfect world, I'll just make videos with Derek someday, or I'll make videos with people with disabilities. And I just really liked telling positive stories with video. And Derek, like Dad said, Derek always wanted his own YouTube channel. And so right at the very beginning of the pandemic, we were getting sent home from work. Katie got sent home from college.
Yep.
Derek was about to start a volunteer job, and they, told him, never mind, we can't do this right now. And I just knew all of a sudden we were going to have a lot of extra time on our hands, and the world was going into this dark place, and I didn't know what that was going to look like, but I did know somebody who could make a lot of people laugh. And so we started making content, and a week later I lost my job, and this has been my job ever since. I've been making content nonstop since then. And he loves wrestling. And so when we started this podcast, we wanted that to be a big part of what we do, because that's what Derek's passionate about, and that's what we do now.
You guys are good at it.
You guys are on fire with those questions.
Can I tell you something about Shags that I don't think you know, that I think you're going to really like?
I will get to that in a minute.
Okay, you go first.
When you guys met before, do you know exactly what year is that?
What was it? 9 years ago, I think. 2014, 2015.
They're coming up on their 10-year anniversary of being buddies.
Our
We should
BFF.
do something special.
You guys better celebrate that next year.
Brandon,
Well, we're gonna have to take a trip.
The next question is actually for you, Shags. Tell me all about you.
Well, very quickly, in a nutshell, my man, I'm 45 years old. I'm a Oregon hippie and living out in the Midwest that just loves to trout fish. I'm more of a fisherman than I am a hunter. But yeah, just a radio fanatic and podcaster, and just got a brown trout tattooed on my forearm because that's what I like to fish for.
So do you use that tattoo to measure real brown trout?
everyone the legal link limit on the river?
No exaggeration. Every year I get tagged and sent that tattoo of the tape measure length, like on someone's leg. It makes the rounds every year, and everyone tags me in it saying, "Oh, this should be your next one." And I'm just a catch and release guy, so I don't need a tape measure unless we get into like the Taney-Como 30-inch club, which I luckily have done before.
Yeah, you have done that, but you were wanting that 10-pounder. Did that one crack that?
It did. It was about. I mean, we estimated at 13, so that was 31 inches.
Well, that was super cool. Jenna's going to bring up about wrestling, so I gotta know what you like most about wrestling.
What do I like the most about wrestling? Well, I'm kind of the old school 80s, early 90s wrestler. I mean, I've had some fun interactions with some. I mean, not as cool as you. I mean, I want to start talking about you and John Cena. That was insane, dude. That was nuts. Yeah, exactly. I almost commented like, what's Derek doing by himself? Because I couldn't even see John Cena in the video.
You would not have been the only person that commented something along those lines.
The next question for you: do you met John Cena?
No. The only wrestler I've actually met was Jericho back in the day, because he was the lead singer of a band, Fozzy.
Are you talking about Chris Jericho?
Yes, I've actually met. That was a fun interaction because he was not very happy with me because I was interviewing him in his trailer and I wanted to talk wrestling. And he goes, 0 wrestling questions. I'm only here to talk about my band. And I'm like, I get it. You're promoting your rock band. We will get to the rock band, but I got like 2-3 basic wrestling questions. He refused to do them for me. So I was a bit of, I had a chip on my shoulder back in those days. So I was like, okay, well, the interview's over. I don't care to talk about your rock band if we're not going to talk wrestling. So I left. So we're backstage and we see him walking by, and my night guy, I was like, there's Jericho. And we had a little mini recorder, a little MP3 player with a little tiny microphone. So his name was Barrett. He ran up to Chris Jericho and was like, hey man, I want to talk to you. And Jericho was so fed up with us at that point. He's like, is this what you want? And he grabbed the microphone, grabbed a bunch of gravel, and just started slamming it on the microphone to try to break it, ruin it. I mean, I don't care. It wasn't mine. I thought it made for amazing audio because we're all hooting and hollering. It sounds like we got body slammed by Jericho. And so, yeah, we played that up for so long on the radio. about Chris Jericho slamming our night guy backstage before the show.
That is hilarious. So his
Wow.
wrestler persona is maybe his real life persona.
It could be, yeah. I don't think he appreciated me walking out. Well, I'm in my 20s. Like, I just didn't care. And I just walked out on the interview, and I don't think he appreciated that very much, that I wasted his time. But I felt like he was wasting mine at that point.
Well, good for you.
I probably wouldn't do it now in my 40s, but in my 20s, it's like, who cares? I'm going to go out and hang out in the VIP area.
Well, I heard when you talked about meeting Dad on your podcast, I was listening, and I heard you say that you had also interviewed Triple H.
That was like my first ever radio interview over the phone, and he was super cool. Like, he was a really good guy and answered all my questions. And I even remember that one, him being so massive, me asking, like, do people always try to start stuff with you in bars thinking that they're tough? I feel like that's kind of it, because I'm 6'8" and like 250 pounds, so I'm a pretty big guy myself, that I used to have that issue. But he was so cool talking about, there are some people that will come up and try to do some stupid stuff, but usually I can talk them down, or I got other people to take care of that for me.
So we actually just met Triple H as well as John Cena. So I didn't know this. I had planned everything with the WWE, and I knew that we were going backstage, but basically we had got invited backstage by a guy who's on the pyrotechnics team, and he did not have the ability to grant me permission to record backstage. So luckily I was able to connect with one of the social media guys who followed us on Instagram. We've met him at other events, and he was able to say, yeah, I'll come, I'll be with you, so that we can record and we can get permission to make content while we were back there. Well, I knew we were going backstage. I didn't know until 2 hours before Friday Night SmackDown that we were going to meet John Cena. And then we ended up getting to walk around backstage, and Derek got to meet so many other wrestlers because we were just walking around back there. I just finished editing the videos today with Derek and Triple H, and I just sent him over to WWE. But tell Shags what you asked Triple H.
I will ask that in a minute. Shags, guess what?
What?
I met John Cena.
Dude, it's blowing. Can you see it? My mind is being blown right now from you getting to meet John Cena.
I know. It's Chris right to meet John Cena. Is super nice.
I really liked how hard Dad actually made John Cena laugh. Because
that is true.
Derek tells him, he's like, I predict you're going to take your hat off, and I predict you're going to give me your shirt. So John Cena takes his hat off, gives it to Derek, takes the shirt off. He's like, it's like I can't control myself. But then John Cena, after he's now removed his hat and shirt, he's like, okay, we're done here, right? He's like, anything else and I'm indecent. And so we're, of course, all laughing, and Dad pipes up from behind him, and he's like, well, what shoe size are you?
What size shoes do you got?
And John Cena like bent over laughing. He laughed so hard. I was proud of my dad.
I got him in. That was pretty cool. And also I did met the game as well. Triple H, like Jenna said before, and I got 2 matches going to be confirmed. One is the rematch. Trick Williams versus Dominic Mysterio for the NXT North American Championship.
This is what he told Triple H.
Steel cage match, no Judgment Day, and not just that one. Also, I'm in the Royal Rumble match.
Yeah, he wants to be in the Royal Rumble match. Triple H goes, well, Derek, you know the ropes are about this tall, and puts it on Derek's eyeballs. And I think Jenna said, well, hey, he's about the same size as Chad Gable or Rey Mysterio, which is true.
It is true. It's 2 of our wrestling buddies we've made. I'm like, hey, Triple H, same size as Chad Gable. Chad Gable goes out there every week, and Triple H told him he would work on it. So,
yeah.
And he's going to work on it. That's exactly what Jenna wants to mention. So,
what about, I bet Shags would love to hear about when you met Ric Flair.
I did met Ric Flair. He's a pretty cool guy.
We did meet Ric Flair. So this is what happened. We went to Nashville for SummerSlam. We've been really fortunate. We've been working with Cricket Wireless for the past 2 years, and we've been able to go to some of these big wrestling premier live events around the country. And last summer, we were in Nashville, And it's the day after the event. We had been at the event the night before, and we're walking around Nashville just enjoying the city because we left on Monday. And we run into this guy who worked for WWE that we had met earlier that week when we were doing some of our content with Cricket. And he was with a bunch of people who worked for Car Shield. And that night, Car Shield was the presenting sponsor of Ric Flair's last match. So when we ran into these guys in downtown Nashville, they're like, well, you're going to Ric Flair's last match tonight? And we weren't. And they're like, oh, you got to come. So we went to Ric Flair's last match, which truthfully was borderline elder abuse in my opinion. Okay. I was a little scared of this old man in the ring and the blood, and which I'm hoping the blood was fake. It was probably fake, but it was a little startling to see a 72-year-old in the ring. But fast forward, there was like a big after party and we weren't able to go to that because we had to get up really early. But Car Shield did this commercial with Ric Flair, and then it was also with Ryan O'Reilly and Pat Maroon, two big blues players, right? So when they did the commercial, it was at a local rink here in St. Louis. They invited us out then so that Derek could come meet Ric Flair. And the best part of Derek meeting Ric Flair was Ric Flair was standing between Ryan O'Reilly and Pat Maroon, who were both completely geared up in their skates and their pads and looked massively larger than Ric Flair. And Derek comes walking up. It's his turn to meet these guys. And up until that point, everyone who was there really excited to meet them were all excited to meet the hockey players. And Derek walks up, could not have paid a lick of attention more to the hockey players, and is just immediately beelining for Ric Flair. And I am more than certain that Pat Maroon and Ryan O'Reilly felt a little bit humbled in that moment because Derek was there for Ric Flair and Ric Flair only.
For Ric Flair.
Yeah, can you do your best Ric Flair impersonation impression?
Say, right? Really did it. Kids really did it. Woo!
That's the best you got. I've
do
seen
better
you do
than that.
way
Come
better
on.
than that.
Woo!
Woo!
All right. That was a little better. But yeah, it was very funny. Ric Flair was very nice. Ric Flair was trying to get Derek to be a ladies' man with him.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, Derek, you
Made
get
it
her to
girls.
kiss you on the cheek. I'll get you to kiss me on the cheek. I'm like, Ric Flair, we got to ask for consent first, buddy. What are you doing?
He's going, kiss the girls and make them cry. Kiss the girls and make them cry. Jenna goes, what about consent? And he goes, it's just a suggestion.
That is
He was a hoot. He was fun.
That's
was
funny.
fun. Derek also met the Undertaker.
What?
I did.
Who? I think the list would be shorter on who you haven't met.
Well, he's met a lot.
We've met a lot, but there's a lot he still hasn't met too. There's so many of them.
Was the Undertaker scary or was he really nice? Was he in full getup or?
I do think the Undertaker is scary, but I do know the Undertaker is so nice to me.
He was very nice. He wasn't in his getup, so he didn't want to be
wasn't-
recorded.
He wasn't in scary anything, but I did talk to him about his shrink at WrestleMania 30, and I showed the core in the Undertaker, and he thought about responding to that. So
Derek was pretty starstruck when he met him, though. His eyes got about this big around.
And he's a big dude too, isn't he? Isn't he like 6'5", 6'6"? Like he's
Oh,
a
yeah.
big human being.
Probably.
He's
He's
big.
a massive man.
Probably.
Yeah, he's big.
Derek came right about up to
He
his
was a
hip.
basketball player, too.
Was he?
Yeah.
and this is actually funny because last NXT before this week, I saw the Phenom, the Undertaker, with Carmelo Hayes doing the move with Kane to look this way and comes back and do that. The fist thing up in the air. That was so freaking cool.
That was cool.
That was freaking cool.
Yeah, I listened to a podcast Michael Waddell put on. They Bone Collector guys actually took him, the Undertaker, turkey hunting. And he apparently really enjoys it, but he said, I just never had a chance because I'm on the road like 365 days a year. You can't do it. So after he retired, they they took him hunting. He killed a bird. Then they talked all about that and a lot of other wrestling stuff. It was a really cool one. It was fun.
Okay, I think we do have to wrap things up here, buddy. Do you have a...
Well, I do have 3 questions for them. I have 2 for Dad.
Okay,
So
let's
first,
hear.
I'm going to start with your dad. Dad, will you start listening to these boys? How does it feel to listen to their podcast?
And now to talk to them?
You know, it's really cool. I'd never thought I would ever talk to these guys or anybody else that I listen to. But, you know, happenstances and, of course, your fame helped put all this together.
Well, what I thought was cool, Derek, was when Dad met Shags, and then Shags talked about meeting Dad on his podcast. When he said that he looked you up, he was like, "Oh my gosh, I've seen this guy's videos before," and he knew who you were.
Well, thank you for bringing that up. My second question is, it is for you, also you, Shags, as well. How does it feel when you guys met? How'd that happen?
It was really cool because generally when I'm down on the river, we no longer speak of. I don't get recognized all that much. And when we were taken out, your dad showed up and was like, "Shags?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, and my fiance was there and he's like, "Oh, you must be Savannah." And so I knew like he listened, because then he was cracking jokes about, "Tell Brandon to stop shooting your uncle's deer," and asking if I kept any brown trout to eat. Like he knows the podcast, which even Savannah and I, my fiance, when we were leaving, were giggling about how well he knew the show. I was like, I bet he knows it better than I do on what we talk about. So it was really flattering and a really cool experience to just randomly run into your dad on the water, and just for it to be such a small world of him being your dad and you being so famous and my nephew loving you. It's just a wild connection on how it all just kind of plays out. And yeah, I think we're all just becoming best friends, Derek. I'm gonna just stop by, and I'm gonna be a part of your family now, bud. I hope you're okay with that. Well, I do have a question for you guys, because on our podcast, we like to do something called the Mystery Bait Bucket, which is usually a random question. And I'm going to pick this one since we've been talking wrestling, and I want us all to go around and answer it. If you can only pick one, who is your favorite wrestler of all time?
Wow. I think Dad have to go first.
Well, one of my favorites is probably the Hulkster. He's kind of in my era. He's an older guy. Very
Hulkamaniac.
And he's the maniac. He was a lot of fun. That's my favorite by far.
Do you want me to go next?
Say it.
Do you know who I'm going to say?
Say it.
Dominic Mysterio.
hey, yeah, he's not a legend.
He is a legend.
Wrong. Who's the WWE Hall of Famer?
Rey Mysterio.
You should have said that. Stay up, Dominic.
Okay, all right. Okay, well, I like Rey and Dominic Mysterio, and we've gotten to make really good friends with both of them.
It's Rey Mysterio.
Dominic was the first special guest we ever had on our podcast, and we actually made friends with him back in 2020. He was the first, big, I guess technically we met Colt Cabana first, but Dominic we got to meet him in person first, and he surprised Derek we went on the WWE show. They have this, it's like the Bump. It's like their ESPN or Sports Center. And Derek and I went on the Bump, and Dominic came on and surprised Derek virtually. And then when WWE came back to St. Louis for the first time since the pandemic, it was Royal Rumble, and Rey and Dominic actually came to the bakery that Derek worked at the time. And they surprised Derek there, and it was so cool. And we asked Dom when he talked about it on our podcast what that is normally like, because I was shocked. They spent 2 hours with us.
It was amazing.
Day. And that was just absolutely not what I was expecting from them. I knew they were going to come. I knew they were going to give Derek tickets and surprise him and all that good stuff. But they literally spent 2 hours of their time the day before they both wrestled in the Royal Rumble with our family. And when I asked him, I was like, what did you expect from that meeting? He's like, I'll be honest with you. Those kinds of things normally take 30 minutes, sometimes 20 minutes max. But I think we just really hit it off with you guys, and we were enjoying ourselves, so we just stayed, and we've really created an awesome friendship with them since. And Dominic actually started his career in 2020 And so it's been really fun for us to kind of grow our platform as he's grown in his wrestling career. And Derek and Dominic, their birthdays are 3 days apart.
They're
in
brothers.
the same year.
Or they were.
Wow.
So when Derek first found that out, he's like, "That's my brother! That's my brother!" And the Mysterio family truly has embraced us in such a generous, beautiful way. And we've made friends with the mom and the daughter who aren't even in the wrestling ring. And we've seen them at multiple events since then. Whenever we're in town and they know we're there, they try to make an effort to see us. So
yeah, they both went out of their way to see us this weekend.
they did.
It's
Dominic
Oh,
came
that's
to
so
see
cool.
us multiple times. Even though Derek was being a little pill and wasn't very nice to him, Dominic still came back to see us, and Ray came to see us. But someday I'm hopeful that Dominic will be back on the good side, and then him and Derek maybe won't have quite so much beef, and Derek might accept him as his brother again.
Dom turned heel and went over to the Judgment Day, and
Here's the thing.
they've been beefing ever since, or he's been beefing.
That's
We went
wrestling.
to
That's wrestling.
One Monday Night Raw in the entire year of 2022. One Monday Night Raw. It happens every single week. And the one Monday Night Raw that was in Missouri, it was in Kansas City, was the one Monday Night Raw that Dom officially turned on his dad. And it was a very terrible day for us, I'll tell you. Okay? It was not good. Things did not go well for us
I mean, he
after
lives
that.
it. He literally lives it.
And it was Dominic, actually, he was so kind. He made it a point to, after he turned heel, I had posted a couple videos on Instagram of Derek cursing up a storm, telling him all the reasons why he's pissed off at Dominic. And Dom felt bad. And the next day, he actually FaceTimed us, and he had a whole conversation with Derek and told Derek that, you know, the guy you met, that's still who I am. You know, it is my job to play a character and all that kind of stuff. And he tried to make it right with Derek, which I just thought was really, really kind. And, you know, he did not have to do that, but he values our friendship, and he wanted Derek to know that he still loves him. And he made it a point to call him and try to make up with him. But currently Derek likes to talk trash on Dom because Dom's a bad guy in the ring.
All right, Brandon, hold on, Derek. We're gonna keep you. Hold on, you're going last.
Oh, you're gonna go last.
You're gonna be the last one. We got to get Brandon's favorite. We got to get Brandon's favorite wrestler first.
Go ahead.
I got to go Hulk Hogan as well. I mean, he's the Michael Jordan, right?
Well, then, in my opinion, with the St. Louis Cardinals tie, because I grew up in Oregon, a Cardinals fan, so to be able to take my dad to Busch Stadium, because that was one of the things we had in common, was pretty cool. But I got to go Macho Man Randy Savage.
I was wondered if you were going to say him.
Yeah, that dude played for the St. Louis Cardinals minor league ball team. That dude was such an
like
athlete.
A shortstop or something, wasn't he?
Yeah, he blew out his right arm and then taught himself how to throw with his left, and was still playing in the Cardinals system.
Wow.
Just goes to show you how kind of athlete that. And come on, you can't. Some of those takes that he had about the cream rising to the top and his like I just. And Miss Elizabeth. Yeah, Macho Man Randy Savage all day.
All right, wrap it up, D. Who's yours?
My favorite wrestlers are two.
Okay, you're gonna make it two. Two's fair.
Two.
It's hard for Derek to pick. He's got a lot that he loves.
Number one is the greatest all time, John Cena.
Well, there you go.
Hey-o!
He is the man. He is the myth. He is a 16-time world champion. He is the greatest all time. I love John Cena. He's a man. He's a man. And I think John Cena is a badass because he did beat Brock Lesnar for a very long time. I think it's definitely in 2012 or 2014. I do not say what year, but I do remember that. Also, my number two, no, it's not Dominic, but it's Rey freaking Mysterio. Rey Mysterio. He is amazing. He is the incredible champion, United States champion, Intercontinental champion, Cruiserweight champion, Royal Rumble winner, Great Slam, Rey Mysterio, all the way. John Cena and Rey Mysterio are my favorite.
Awesome.
Anyway, let's hear it for our greatest guys, my dad's good boys, Shags and Brandon. It's good to have you guys.
Thank
Great
you
to
so
be here.
much.
Thank you.
Yeah,
thank
thanks
you.
for joining us.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and we need to figure out a time to go fishing together. That would be fun.
Let's do it. Before we get off here, let's switch numbers and
I'll give him your number so he can text you.
yeah, great. That's awesome.
Go hunting with him too, because I'm not available.
Because I'm not available.
I could take you down on the lower portion of the river, and I wouldn't mind learning a little bit of the upper portion myself.
Yeah, we got the rafts for you. Let's do it.
Yeah, if you guys want an expert on that river that you guys don't talk about, he's your guy, okay? Let me tell you, his mom passed away earlier this year, and I didn't know this until she passed away, but she recorded a lot of video of his life, and I was editing this video for her funeral to put together some of the most, the coolest clips of him and his sister and his brother and mom and dad, and there was videos of him easily 2 years old out on that river, catching a snake, catching fish, doing all sorts of stuff. So he has been navigating those waters for a very, very long time. He is certainly an expert on the Ozark National River Scenic Riverway.
Yeah, we've got a lot of pictures, old ones when the old wooden John boats were a big thing on the river. Way back before the jet boats were a thing, and even I mean, the park came in like 64 or something, so the canoes started pretty quick. But honestly, we don't get a lot of them down on our portion of the river. We're just kind of in a little special place. So
yeah, let's do it. I'm down.
So, yeah, let's do it.
I'll give you his number so you can be buddies for real.
Right.
We all just became best friends.
Yeah. Did you just become best friends?
There you go. You got best friend.
Right.
BFF.
Well, thank you so much, guys. We'll send you the audio too.
Yeah, keep doing the good job that you guys do.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
You got great content, and it's more than just hunting and fishing. There's a lot of good stuff that you guys put out. So.
Thank you very much. Same with you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Be well.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
See ya.